hopefully I can continue on with that this week. We're starting in a new book, new sessions. We're going to be focusing a lot on the parables of Jesus, which is really kind of cool because it's Him teaching us lessons and doing it in His way. Now, our lesson this week is for September the 6th, and it's Unit 25, and it's session number 1. The title of it is Jesus Tells the Kingdom Parables. We'll be in Matthew 13, and we'll stay there the entire time. We'll start actually with verse 1, and when we finish, we'll be with 46, but we're not doing all that many verses. We're actually only doing probably a dozen verses total, so don't panic. Ask you a question. Have you guys ever saw on the internet, there was posters like this, I don't know if there still are, where if you stared at the poster long enough, an image would appear. When you first looked at it, it was just kind of a mishmash of colors and everything like that, and the more you looked at it, the more you paid attention to it, the more you drew your focus to it, you could eventually see a picture. I do know that there's other things that where a picture is drawn and it looks like one thing, and then the longer you focus on it, you can shift your focus and it looks like something else. But I'm talking very specifically about this, where you focus on it and then you see ultimately what the image is. Well, that's kind of where we're going with our lesson today, and that's in a lot of, it's kind of the way Jesus did with his parables. Sometimes it on the surface seemed obscure, but the more they focused on it, the more they understood what he was saying, the more they realized what he was saying. He did this in it trying to describe the kingdom, and he also used a lot of agricultural parables. So notice that. But if you think about it, it just makes sense. Those were the people he talked to mostly. Was the people that were the planters. They were the people that did the leather work, the woodwork. That was the people he talked to for the most part. And so he did this in order to get their attention, in order to help them to understand who he was and what the kingdom of heaven would be. Now, our first set of verses would be, again, Matthew 13, 1 through 9. And let me read that for us real quick. It says, on that day, Jesus went out of the house and was sitting by the sea. Such large crowds gathered around him that he got into a boat and sat down while the whole crowd stood on the shore. Then he told them many things in parables, saying, consider the sower who went out to sow. As he sowed, some seed fell on the path, and the birds came and devoured them. Other seed fell on rocky ground, where it didn't have much soil, and it grew up quickly, since the soil wasn't deep. But then the same sun came up and scorched it, and it didn't take root. It withered away. Other seed fell among thorns, and the thorns came up and choked it. Still, other seed fell on good ground and produced fruit, some 100, some 60, and some 30 times what was sown. Let anyone who let anyone who has ears listen. Very interesting. It's if we again, like I said, let's remember that in this scenario, he was talking to people that would be gardeners, planters, farmers, but it to them on the surface would have seemed almost, they use the word here willy-nilly. I have used that, but I'm not sure that I like that in this instance. But anyway, he was talking about the gardener just throwing the seeds out just anywhere, trying to, and it landing on good ground, landing on bad ground, landing in the weeds and everything like that. And a seasoned farmer might not necessarily do that. And he kind of tries to bring that point in. But Jesus' point in this particular parable is this. Yes, it was random. Yes, sowing the seeds were just, in their opinion, as he said, the writer says, willy-nilly. But the point is, and this is the point that we have to take away from this, the point is, he sowed the seeds everywhere. Not just in what would be considered good soil. He sowed the seeds everywhere. And it's important for us to always remember that. And I know you guys have heard lessons about this before. You've heard sermons about this before. But please, let this settle in. Think about it. We need to make sure that we know that when we're out there trying to reach people, we have to do it everywhere. We can't be selective. It's not going to do you any good. Well, no, that's a bad statement to say it that way. When you speak to someone in church, we're going to use church, and that's the reason I said it won't do you any good. Now, who's to say that someone within the church might not receive the word? But if you're spreading the word, you don't want to focus primarily in the church. Is it a good place to come? Is it a good place to meet? Absolutely. Is it a good place to invite people to? Absolutely. But what we have to do is we have to get out there. We get out into the places where we think it might not make any good, or do any good. We do a pretty good job of it. I feel like we are at New Temple. We're currently doing the golf cart ministry. You would never think that you would be able to speak to someone in that time frame, but that's what's going on. Is these men are given the opportunity to share the gospel, even if it's just by speaking kind words and driving someone from point A to point B. It's that kind of thing. So in this particular parable, he is very specifically saying, don't focus just on the good ground. Focus on all the ground. And it's really important for you to understand that. It's important for you to remember that. And also something to think about. This is not in the lesson. This is free. Don't focus just on your friends. There's other people out there that need to hear the word as well. That's not to say that your friends don't need it, but there's other people out there that need to hear it. Jesus taught the word. He shared it with all people. And a lot of people that hear God's word will ultimately reject it. And that's unfortunate. But we can't help that. That's not on us. Should we be burdened? Yes. It should burden our heart. But that's not for us to determine. If it's rejected, it's rejected. But we have the responsibility to spread the word. And then those that receive God's word, they will be the ones that will in turn produce an abundant harvest. And that's what's important. Okay, so let's get out there and start doing that. And I actually could wrap the lesson up at this point with this parable, but he continues on. So let's move on to Matthew 13:31 through 33. Okay. He presented another parable to them. The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed that a man took and sowed in the field. It's the smaller of all the weeds, but when grown, it's taller than the garden plants and becomes a tree, so that the birds of the sky come and nest in the branches. He told them another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like a woman that took and mixed 50 pounds of flour until it was leavened. Okay. This again seems insignificant in what he's saying here, but there's imagery here. There's two images, two portraits that are being painted here. One, the mustard seed, and then one of the leaven. The point here is, and obviously, oftentimes when we talk about the mustard seed, we're talking about faith. I don't want you to lose that. I want you to hang on to that too. But also, here's another image that Jesus wants you to understand in this lesson. Tiny, 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 tiny seed. I've actually done a lesson or two with the youth where I've brought in the seeds and shown them to you. A mustard seed is itty bitty, y'all. I mean, it's not much bigger than a pinhead. Same way with leaven. A tiny bit of leaven will leaven a big batch of bread dough. It doesn't take much, and that's what he's talking about here. You know, things may not seem like there's a lot of it, but with God's help, that's all you need. So those good words that are given to someone will take root and grow through God. So it's important for you to remember that. We just need to obey. We need to be the ones doing what he tells us to do. Unfortunately, I think that we don't obey him like we should. This has even been a topic of conversation with a friend of mine this week. Not doing what I should be doing, which needs to start with, prayer and worship and Bible study. We all need to do that, and we can all get better at that. And then it goes beyond that. We need to be able to spread the word and show the love and the joy that God gives us. So, moving on to the next part, and this is a continuation. And look, in the beginning of Jesus' ministry, it didn't look like much. Now think about it, okay? Let's use an example. When someone goes into a political office, like when President Trump took office, okay? The first thing he did was he went out and got high-powered people and brought them in around him to help him in order to be able to be successful. And we look at Jesus and we go, wait a minute, he didn't do that. What did he do? Well, he got fishermen, and he had a doctor, and he had a lawyer, and there was a tax collector, but nobody of real substance, nobody of real power. And he took these people that, in often cases now, we would consider a lot of them blue-collar workers, some white-collar workers, but these people, not the most powerful people in the world, not the kings and the pharaohs. What he did, which was very unlike kings of that day, the first thing they did was, when they took power, they brought the most powerful people in and eliminated everybody that had before that. Jesus didn't do that, which kind of surprised people, threw people off a little bit, because what Jesus wound up doing was, by doing this, he spread the absolute most powerful message in the universe. And that was that God is God, and the only way to heaven is through Jesus. He did it though, and it continues to go on. And think about it. What are some of the other stories? I'm not gonna go down that road, but I want you to think about it. What are some of the other stories where God took somebody or something and took a little and turned it around? We recently talked about the parables of the fishes and the loaves. I mean, think about it. He did that. He took something small and made it great. And that's what he did here. He defied all cultural expectations. He ushered in, like I said earlier, the most powerful force. They used the word force here. Justin, you'll appreciate this. The first thing that came to mind was Star Wars. And the Force was with them. But they issued the most powerful force in the universe. And it was through really, really very modest means. But God is good at doing that. That's what he does. He can take you, he can take me, and with just somebody that doesn't think that they can do much, he can do great things. So never fear. He's going to always be there with you. And that was my takeaway from it. Now let's move to Matthew 13:44 through 46, and then we'll wrap this up. It says, the kingdom of heaven is like treasure buried in a field that a man found and reburied. Then in his joy he goes and sells everything he has and buys the field. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant in search of fine pearls. When he found one priceless pearl, he went and sold everything he had and bought it. Now, and I've heard a lot of different lessons and a lot of different sermons on this man, or the merchant, and then the man that did this in a lot of different ways. Excuse me. But our writer approached it a little bit different way, and I like the way he did it, in that that maybe these people were someone that searched all their lives for that golden ring, you know, that one big score, that big thing. They searched all their lives until they found it. And then when they found it, they got rid of everything else they had and focused their entire life on that one thing. And the writer brought it up that maybe in this parable, that one thing was indeed Jesus. And maybe that's where we need to be. No, and no maybe about it. That is where we need to be. That's everything we have. That's everything we are. He is our all in all. And we give up everything for the kingdom of heaven. And it's important that we do that. I mean, look at it. I mean, my goodness, Jesus gave up everything. He gave up his life for heaven. If he can give his life, why can't we give and do the same thing? It's just kind of that simple. Never thought of it. I personally have never thought of it like that, but it just made perfect sense. We should do this. We should give up everything for him. Is it hard? Oh yeah, very hard. But we should be thinking about this, and we should be moving in this direction, because it is indeed worth everything. It is truly precious. And that should be the most precious thing to us. Now, I'm going to wrap this up with a question. This is one of those guys in my class, I wrote wow next to it. Y'all know sometimes I'll do that, or great, or this was a wow. This one went beyond great. And I'm going to read this question. It says, what rivals Christ for the number one place in your heart? And how can you place him first in every area of your life? So, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you putting number one in your life? What are you putting number one in your heart? Is it a girlfriend, a boyfriend? Is it a sport? Is it a car? Is it some of you aren't driving, so is it a video game? I know this week I got to start back in school and work some this week, and the first things I'm hearing about is, World of Warcraft, and right off the bat, that was the number one thing in their life. They couldn't wait to get home to sit down and play World of Warcraft. And it was like, wow, that's number one in their life. What if they devoted that kind of time to Jesus? What if you devote that kind of time? What if I devote that kind of time? I do try to think about him and place him first in everything that I do and every decision I make, but I can do better. I know I can do better. I know you can do better, because none of us can ever do enough. None of us. So, the challenge for this week is, okay, back to the basics. Study, prayer, worship. Let's go ahead, get back in that, get back to doing that. Guys, y'all are sitting in front of a computer quite frequently now, especially those of you in Jefferson County. But in Walker County, you are actually in a school setting some. But there's times during the day that you're going to be able to do this some. Because y'all are so smart, you're getting ahead of your lessons. I know that's happening too. I know that from just the students that I've been able to talk to this week. They get ahead pretty quickly. So that puts you in a position to be able to devote some time to God. Okay? Let's start doing that. Let's start moving in that direction. Also, in a way of an announcement, let's not forget that we have the discipleship class coming up that Justin's been talking about. I think it's $20, but that's for the book and everything. And check the website or Facebook page for the dates when it's going to start. It's still a couple weeks away, but we need to go ahead and get that started. Okay. If you have not responded to Justin regarding the winter trip, you need to let him know so we can go ahead and get this worked out. Because if nobody wants to go, as far as we know right now, I think they're still doing it. So let's go. Let's go and worship and praise. I know I want to go. Let's go do it. Okay. All right. So let me close this out in a word of prayer, and we'll wrap this up. Holy God, I thank you so much. You are amazing. Jesus is our all in all, and we know that, and we understand that. Unfortunately, sometimes we may not show it, but we know it is. We know He is. We thank you. We thank you for our church. We thank you for Justin. We thank you for Brother JJ, for their families. They're just so cool. And we ask now that you continue to help us look for a worship minister, worship leader. As our church grows physically, we ask that you continue to be a part of that as well. Again, we thank you so much for all that you've done, all that you continue to do. We thank you for every day of life. We thank you for each and every one that views this video. I ask that you bless them, just bless their socks off. God, we thank you. We love you. And above all else, that will be done. Amen. Guys, y'all have an absolutely amazing week, and we'll see you real soon. Bye.